The day has barely begun, and the world is already shouting for your attention. Your phone buzzes on the nightstand, not with a gentle alarm, but with a stream of notifications that piled up while you slept. Before your first cup of coffee, you're scrolling through emails, one of them already marked urgent. You feel that familiar tightening in your chest, that subtle rush of anxiety. It's the feeling that you're already behind in a race you didn't even agree to run. We're told this is normal. This is ambition. This is what it takes to stay relevant. We are conditioned to react, to respond instantly, to have an opinion on everything, to speak first just to prove we're in the room. But have you ever paused in the middle of that chaos and felt a different kind of question rise to the surface? A quieter, deeper question. What if all this noise isn't making us stronger, but just more tired? What if our greatest strength isn't found in speaking more, but in observing more? And what if the real foundation of a happy life isn't built by chasing the next thing, but by truly valuing what you already have? These aren't just philosophical questions for a quiet afternoon. For many of us, especially as we navigate our careers, our families, and our own inner worlds, these questions have become urgent. They have become the key to finding sanity in a world addicted to chaos. This video is about reclaiming that sanity. It's about introducing you to two of the most powerful tools available to the human mind, tools that have been tested for centuries by Stoic philosophers and are now being validated by modern neuroscience. We're going to call them your two superpowers, because in the context of today's world, that's exactly what they are. The first is the power of observation, the ability to create space between what happens to you and how you respond. The second is the discipline of gratitude, the practice of training your mind to see abundance where it has been taught to see only lack. These aren't passive mindsets. They are active, trainable skills that can fundamentally change your relationship with your work, your loved ones, and most importantly, yourself. So let's begin this journey. Let's explore the first, and perhaps most rebellious superpower in our noisy world, the power of observation. Think about the last time you felt that jolt of raw, unfiltered emotion at work. Maybe it was an email from a colleague that felt less like a question and more like an accusation. Perhaps it was a comment in a meeting that subtly undermined months of your hard work. Or maybe it was just a text message from home, arriving at the worst possible moment, carrying a weight of frustration that threatened to derail your entire day. What happened in the moments that followed? If you're like most of us, your body reacted before your mind even had a chance to catch up. A wave of heat might have washed over you. Your heart rate quickened. Your fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to fire back a defensive reply, a justification, a counterattack. In that moment, you weren't a strategist or a leader. You were a bundle of raw nerves, ready for battle. This impulse, this rush to react, feels incredibly powerful. It feels like self-preservation. But the Stoics, and now modern science, tell us that true power lies in the exact opposite direction. The philosopher Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the unimaginable horrors of the Holocaust, captured this profound truth perfectly. He said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This space is the single most important, yet most overlooked, territory in our entire lives. And learning to find it, to inhabit it, even for just a few seconds, is what separates a life of frantic reaction from a life of intentional action. It is the first step in reclaiming control from the chaos. To understand why this space is so critical, we need to look at the architecture of our own brains. Think of your brain as having two key players in these high-stakes moments. First, you have the amygdala. You can picture it as your brain's ancient, hypervigilant security guard. It's been with our species for millions of years, and its only job is to scan the environment for threats. When it perceives a threat, whether it's a tiger in the grass or a passive-aggressive email, it hits the panic button. It floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline, preparing you for what it knows best: fight, flight, or freeze. This system is incredibly fast, brutally efficient, and designed for one thing: immediate survival. It doesn't care about nuance, long-term consequences, or professional relationships. It just wants to get you through the next 60 seconds. Then, there's the other player, your prefrontal cortex, or PFC. This is the CEO of your brain. It's the newer, more sophisticated part of your mind, located right behind your forehead. The PFC is responsible for everything we associate with wisdom, logical reasoning, emotional regulation, long-term planning, and understanding social cues. It's the part of you that can see the bigger picture, that can anticipate the ripple effects of your actions, that can choose empathy over anger. But here's the crucial difference: the CEO is slower. It's thoughtful, deliberate, and requires more energy. When that threatening email lands in your inbox, a race begins. The amygdala, your security guard, instantly screams, "Danger," and tries to hijack your entire system. The prefrontal cortex, your CEO, is just beginning to process the information, asking questions like, what is the context here? What could be their intention? What is the most productive way to respond? But if you react instantly, if you type and send that email in a blaze of fury, you are letting the security guard run the company. You're letting the most primitive, fear-based part of your brain make a critical executive decision. And how often do decisions made in a panic turn out to be the wisest ones? This is why learning to pause is not a sign of weakness, it is an act of profound, disciplined strength. When you consciously choose to wait, to take a single, deep breath before replying, to get up and walk around the room, to simply do nothing for 5 minutes, you are performing a biological intervention. You are intentionally cutting the signal from your overactive amygdala. You are giving the neurochemicals in your brain a chance to settle. And most importantly, you are giving your prefrontal cortex, your wise, thoughtful CEO, the time it needs to come online, assess the situation calmly, and choose a response that aligns with your long-term goals and values, not your immediate, primal fear. Let's bring this back to your life. How many conflicts, both at work and at home, could have been softened or avoided entirely with a simple, 5-second pause? How many times have you sent a text in anger, only to be filled with regret moments later as you realize the damage is done? The words are out there, and they can't be unsaid. That wasn't you at your best. That was your amygdala, running a script written for a different era. The person who gets the promotion, who earns the trust of their team, who navigates conflict with grace, that person isn't someone who lacks emotion. They are someone who has mastered the art of creating that sacred space between feeling and acting. They have trained themselves to let the storm of initial emotion pass before they take the helm of the ship. This is more than just conflict management, it's about reclaiming your own mind. Living in a state of constant, low-grade reactivity is exhausting. It burns through your mental and emotional resources, leaving you depleted and vulnerable. By practicing the pause, you are not suppressing your feelings. You are simply deciding that you will not be a slave to them. You are acknowledging the anger, the hurt, or the fear, but you are not letting it write the script. You are creating a buffer of awareness. From that place of calm observation, you can respond with clarity, with intention, and with a power that noise and haste can never match. You begin to realize that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You have the power to observe the situation from a distance, to see it for what it truly is, and to choose a path that leads not to more conflict, but to resolution and peace. In that small, quiet space, you find your freedom. So you found the space. You've resisted the initial, fiery impulse to react and have given yourself a moment of pause. But what happens now? For many of us, this is where a new kind of panic sets in. The silence feels empty, awkward, even weak. We live in a culture that treats silence as a vacuum that must be filled immediately with words, with noise, with something to show we are still engaged, still in control. But this is where we must make a crucial shift in perspective, a shift that your own comments have beautifully articulated. Silence isn't emptiness. It isn't weakness. In a world drowning in noise, silence is your superpower. It is the secret weapon that allows you to move from merely surviving conversations to truly understanding them. Let's first think of silence as your primary tool for intelligence gathering. Most people believe they listen, but what they're really doing is waiting for their turn to speak. Their mind is a busy workshop, crafting rebuttals, preparing arguments, and polishing their own opinions while the other person is still talking. They hear the words, but they miss the data. When you commit to true, observational silence, something profound happens. Your energy is no longer consumed by preparing your broadcast, it is redirected entirely to your reception. You stop just hearing words and start perceiving the entire communication landscape. You notice the subtle hesitation before someone answers a difficult question. You see the flash of defensiveness in their eyes, even as their voice remains steady. You feel the gap between their confident words and their uncertain posture. These are the signals that live beneath the surface of language, the signals that reveal what is truly going on. This is where the truth resides, not in the polished sentences, but in the unscripted humanity. The person who is constantly talking is blind and deaf to this world of data. They are operating with incomplete information, reacting to a carefully curated performance. But the observer, the one who is comfortable in the quiet, sees the whole picture. They understand the emotional currents driving the conversation, and that understanding gives them an almost unfair advantage. Now let's consider silence as a shield, a powerful form of defense against manipulation and pressure. Think of those individuals who rely on conversational aggression to get what they want. They use urgency, emotional provocation, or a barrage of words to overwhelm you, to push you off balance, and to force you into a hasty decision that serves their interests, not yours. They have a script, and that script depends entirely on your predictable, emotional reaction. They expect you to get defensive, to argue back, to become flustered. But when you respond with deliberate, unwavering silence, you shatter their script. You refuse to play your assigned role in their drama. A calm, observant silence is deeply unsettling to someone who thrives on chaos. It communicates a message far more powerful than any words could: I am not rattled. I will not be rushed. Your pressure has no effect on me. In that moment, the power dynamic shifts completely. You are no longer the target of their pressure, you are the calm center that their storm cannot touch. You have taken back control not by raising your voice, but by grounding your presence. This is an incredibly powerful technique in negotiations, in disagreements with loved ones, and in any situation where you feel someone is trying to force your hand. Your silence becomes a declaration of sovereignty over your own mind. But perhaps the most transformative use of this weapon is not aimed outward, but inward. Silence is the mirror in which we can finally see ourselves clearly. When the clamor of a conversation dies down, and you're left in that quiet space, you have a rare opportunity to observe your own internal landscape. You can finally hear the whispers of your own ego. Why am I so desperate to win this point? What am I so afraid of admitting right now? Is this defensiveness coming from a place of principle, or a place of pride? Am I arguing for the truth, or am I just arguing to protect my self-image? These are the questions that lead to genuine growth, but they cannot be heard over the noise of constant talking and reacting. In silence, you can begin to untangle the knots of your own motivations. You can see your own patterns of behavior with a clarity that is both humbling and empowering. You start to catch yourself before you fall into old, destructive habits. You recognize the voice of your ego trying to disguise itself as the voice of reason. And once you can see it, you are no longer controlled by it. This internal observation is the foundation of emotional maturity. It is what allows you to act from your deepest values, rather than from your most superficial insecurities. Many of us were taught that the most influential person in the room is the one doing the most talking. But think back on your own life. Who are the people you have respected the most? Was it the loudest person, the one who always had an answer? Or was it the quiet one, the person who listened intently, who absorbed everything, and who, when they finally did speak, said something of such substance and clarity that the entire room fell silent to listen? Their words carried weight precisely because they were used so sparingly. Their power didn't come from volume, it came from the perceived depth of the observation that preceded their speech. This is the power you cultivate when you embrace silence. You are not becoming passive, you are becoming potent. You are not disappearing, you are developing a presence that is felt long before you ever say a word. You are choosing to be the strategist who sees the whole board, not just the pawn rushing into the fray. And in doing so, you are not only gaining influence over your external world, but you are also building a sanctuary of peace in your internal one. Because the truth that wisdom often whispers, not shouts, can only be heard when you finally give it the silence it deserves. Once you begin to master the art of observation, once you create that sacred pause between the world's stimulus and your own response, you've accomplished something extraordinary. You have cleared a space. You've built a quiet, fertile ground within your own mind, free from the choking weeds of reactive noise. But this raises a profound question. What will you choose to plant in this newly cleared ground? The absence of negativity is not, by itself, the presence of peace. This brings us to our second superpower, a force so transformative that it can take the barren soil of a life lived in anxiety and turn it into a flourishing garden. This is the discipline of gratitude. And I use the word discipline intentionally. Because what we're about to explore is not a fleeting, sentimental emotion. It is the active, daily practice of rewiring the very structure of your brain. Most of us, without even realizing it, are walking through life with a mind that has been expertly trained for scarcity. It's not our fault. It's the air we breathe. Every advertisement we see, every social media feed we scroll through, is a subtle but powerful lesson in what we lack. It shows us the life we should be living, the body we should have, the success we haven't yet achieved. The algorithm is designed to make us feel insufficient, because an insufficient mind is a consuming mind. And so, our brain's default setting becomes a constant, low-grade hum of not enough. We achieve a goal, and for a fleeting moment we feel a sense of accomplishment, only to have our focus immediately shift to the next, higher mountain. We live in a state of perpetual hunger, convinced that fulfillment is a destination we will one day arrive at, once we acquire that one last missing piece. But this is a lie. It is a neurological trap. And gratitude is the key that unlocks the cage. Gratitude is the conscious, deliberate act of shifting your focus from what is absent to what is present. It is the choice to recognize value, not just chase it. And when you make this choice consistently, you are doing more than just changing your mood. You are engaging in an act of neuroplasticity. This is a fundamental concept in neuroscience which states that our brains are not fixed, static organs. They are constantly being shaped by our thoughts, our habits, and our focus. The simple, powerful truth is this: the neurons that fire together, wire together. If you consistently fire the neural pathways of comparison, envy, and dissatisfaction, you will build a brain that is an efficient, well-oiled machine for producing unhappiness. But if you intentionally, repeatedly, fire the pathways of appreciation, you can, and you will, build a different kind of brain. Let's go back to our brain's CEO, the prefrontal cortex. Scientific studies, including those analyzing brain activity with fMRI scans, have revealed something remarkable. When individuals practice gratitude, they show increased activity in this critical region of the brain. This is the area that helps you regulate emotions, make wise decisions, and feel a sense of well-being. By practicing gratitude, you are literally strengthening the part of your brain that creates happiness and stability. You are turning down the volume on the amygdala's fearful shouts of, "You're not safe, you don't have enough," and turning up the volume on the PFC's calm, clear voice of, "Look at what is already here, look at the resources you possess." The renowned psychologist Barbara Fredrickson developed a concept that perfectly explains this phenomenon, the broaden and build theory. Her research shows that negative emotions like fear and anger have a narrowing effect on our minds. They tunnel our vision to focus only on the immediate threat. But positive emotions, with gratitude being one of the most powerful, do the opposite. They broaden our awareness. When you are in a state of gratitude, your mind literally opens up. You become more creative, more resilient, and you see more possibilities in your environment. You start to build resources, stronger relationships, new ideas, a deeper sense of inner peace, that you were blind to when you were trapped in a state of lack. Imagine your life for a moment through these two different neurological lenses. Through the lens of lack, your day is a series of obligations. The morning alarm is an intrusion. The commute is a frustrating delay. Your work is a burden. A conversation with a loved one is just another demand on your limited energy. The world is painted in shades of gray, a landscape of problems to be solved and deficits to be filled. Now, imagine that same exact day viewed through a brain being rewired by gratitude. The morning alarm is a signal that you have been given another day of life, a gift not afforded to everyone. The commute, even in traffic, is an opportunity to listen to music that moves you or a podcast that teaches you something new. Your work, with all its challenges, is a platform to use your skills and contribute something of value. The conversation with a loved one is a chance to connect, to be seen, to offer support. The events of the day have not changed. The traffic is still there. The work is still difficult. But your experience of the day has been radically transformed. As one viewer so wisely put it, life didn't change much, but my inner world transformed. This is not wishful thinking. This is the tangible result of a disciplined mind. It's the difference between walking through a garden and only seeing the weeds, versus training your eye to see the flowers that have been blooming there all along. You begin to understand that the feeling of enough is not a destination you arrive at when your bank account hits a certain number. It is a frequency you can learn to tune into, right here, right now. And by doing so, you move from a life of desperate chasing to a life of powerful creation. So we've established that gratitude isn't a passive feeling but an active rewiring of the brain. We understand the why. But for this to be more than just a fascinating idea, we need the how. We need a practice. A discipline. As one of you so brilliantly stated in the comments, it's about speaking less and doing more, because doing adds up to discipline. It's simple math. This is where we move from theory to transformation. Because resilience, our ability to navigate the inevitable storms of life, is not a trait we are born with. It is a skill we build. And the construction materials are the small, consistent actions we take when the seas are calm. Life, especially after 35, has a way of reminding us that it is not a straight, predictable line. There are career setbacks that shake our confidence, health concerns that remind us of our fragility, and family challenges that test the limits of our patience and love. The critical question isn't if adversity will strike, but how we will respond when it does. Will we be a ship that is shattered by the first major wave, or will we be the one that, despite being battered, finds its way back to shore, perhaps even stronger for having weathered the storm? The difference between these two outcomes is resilience. And that resilience is built, day by day, through a practice so simple, yet so powerful, that it almost feels like cheating. This is the simple math of emotional strength. It's a scientifically backed intervention that researchers often call the 3 good things exercise. The practice is exactly as it sounds. Every evening, before you go to sleep, take 5 minutes to write down 3 things that went well during the day. That's it. They don't have to be monumental victories. In fact, the power often lies in noticing the small, overlooked moments of grace. Perhaps it was the unexpected kindness of a stranger at the grocery store. Maybe it was the deep, satisfying focus you found for 30 minutes on a difficult project. Or perhaps it was simply the warmth of the sun on your face during a short walk. After you write each one down, you add one more simple step. You briefly reflect on why that good thing happened. What was your role in it? This might sound trivial, but what you're actually doing is performing a targeted cognitive exercise. You are actively training your brain to counteract its innate negativity bias. Our brains are naturally wired to scan for threats, problems, and dangers. It's a survival mechanism. If you don't give your brain a different job, it will default to ruminating on the one thing that went wrong today, instead of the 10 things that went right. The 3 good things exercise is a direct command to your brain: stop scanning for threats, and start scanning for blessings. When you do this every single night, you begin to forge and strengthen new neural pathways. Your brain literally gets better at finding the good. It becomes a habit, and eventually, it becomes your automatic default. This is how you build an emotional reserve. Think of it like a savings account for your well-being. Each time you practice this simple act of gratitude, you are making a small deposit. You are banking a positive memory, a moment of connection, a feeling of competence. On easy days, these deposits feel small, almost insignificant. But you keep making them. Then, when a crisis hits, the phone call with bad news, the unexpected layoff, the doctor's report you were dreading, you are not starting from an emotional bank account of zero. You have a deep reserve to draw upon. Your brain, now expertly trained, can hold the reality of the pain and the difficulty, while simultaneously accessing the vast evidence of goodness, connection, and strength that you have been meticulously documenting for months or years. This is the essence of what it means to be resilient. It is not about pretending the hardship doesn't exist. It is about refusing to let the hardship become the only thing that exists. The study we mentioned earlier, involving women with breast cancer, is a testament to this power. The practice of gratitude didn't change their diagnosis, but it changed their experience. It gave them a tool to combat the fear, to find meaning amidst the struggle, and to build a sense of hope. Their gratitude was the armor that protected their inner world when the outer world was terrifying. A resilient mind can hold two truths at once: this situation is incredibly difficult, and I am deeply grateful for the support of my family. Or, I am disappointed in this outcome, and I am proud of the effort I put forth and grateful for the lessons I've learned. This brings us to a critical point: you must appreciate before you achieve. So many of us postpone gratitude until we're on the other side of the struggle. We tell ourselves, I'll be thankful when this is over. But the most resilient people integrate gratitude into the process itself. They are grateful for the strength to show up on a tough day. They are grateful for the clarity that comes from a mistake. They are grateful for the very capacity to endure. When you stop tying your well-being to a future outcome, you anchor it in your present character. You are no longer waiting for the storm to pass to feel whole. You are discovering your wholeness in the very act of navigating the storm. This simple, 5-minute practice is the ultimate form of doing over talking. It is the forging of your armor, piece by piece, night by night. You are building a personal library of your own resilience, a catalog of evidence that even on hard days, there is still light to be found. And when the major storms of life arrive, you will be so profoundly thankful you did. Because the strength to withstand the greatest challenges is rarely found in a moment of grand heroism. It is forged in the quiet consistency of your smallest, most disciplined habits. That is the simple, undeniable math of a strong and grateful life. We've journeyed through the quiet corridors of observation and walked through the sunlit gardens of gratitude. We've seen that these are not just poetic ideals, they are your two innate superpowers, backed by ancient wisdom and confirmed by modern science. The power to create a space of calm before you respond, and the power to train your mind to see the richness that already surrounds you. But knowing the path is not the same as walking it. The true transformation doesn't come from listening to this video. It comes from what you do in the hours and days that follow. The greatest insight is worthless without action. The power, as it has always been, is not in what you know, but in what you consistently do. You have the tools. You have the knowledge. You have the ability to stop being a product of the world's noise and start becoming the architect of your own inner peace. So, to help you take that first step, I want to offer you a simple, practical challenge. Not a lifelong commitment, just a 7-day experiment. For the next 7 days, I challenge you to do just 2 things. First, in the realm of observation, commit to the 5-second pause. Before you reply to any important email, any sensitive text, or any challenging question, simply stop. Take 1 deep breath. Count to 5. That's it. Second, in the realm of gratitude, before you go to sleep each night, write down just 1 thing from your day that you were grateful for. It doesn't have to be big. Just one genuine moment. That's the entire challenge. A 5-second pause and a 1-sentence journal entry. Then, I invite you to come back to this video. Share in the comments below what you noticed. After 7 days, what was the small change you felt? And I want to ask you a question right now: which of these 2 superpowers do you think will be easier for you to practice, and which one harder? Observation or gratitude? Your experience, your struggles, and your insights are valuable, not just to me, but to every single person reading the comments, creating a community of shared growth right here. Finally, if this video has given you even one tool to build a stronger, calmer inner world, perhaps the greatest way to express that is to share it. Send it to a friend, a family member, or a colleague who you know is navigating the same pressures of our modern world. In a world that pushes us toward envy and haste, choosing to share a message of gratitude and patience is a small act of rebellion. Thank you for spending your valuable time here today. Now go, and begin the quiet, powerful work of building your own unshakable peace.